at the bottom is the mascot of the team and the pick that is there for our 2025 mock draft 1.0 so that you can see the comparison of our picks. It's April 24th, 2025. It's a Thursday afternoon, and everybody's lining up in their suits, their suede, their tweed. They're lining up in everything to get ready to show their faces on the stage, get that number one jersey to their team that picks them. And on the clock is the Tennessee Titans. So originally, I'm going to start off with our original picks, just like we did last year. You had Cam Ward out of Miami go to Tennessee. And I think this was the perfect pick for Tennessee if you were at number one. But Nate, do you hear something? I think my phone's ringing. Hold up, let me answer.
Oh, let's see what deal is going to get worked.
Hold up. Yeah? Uh-huh. Okay. The New York Giants trade up to number one. And they're looking to get a quarterback at number one. They're making sure they're going to get their guy because you said it earlier, Nate, there were two names in free agency in particular that had magnifying glasses on them, and that's Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Yep. And in my mind, free agency is not done yet, but in my mind, if they were going to get either or, it would have been done by now.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been done by now, and that's the way I see it. So at number one, there's only one guy that I like to go number one if we're talking quarterback. So for the New York Giants, at number one, they pick Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you were about to go ahead.
You thought I was going to pick Jackson Dart number one?
No, I thought you were going to make it interesting. I mean, because we never know what's going to happen draft day. But once that phone rings, that's another piece right there. It's interesting. I know we got to talk about this draft, and I don't want to take too much time talking about this, but it's going to be really interesting to see that first phone call, that first trade.
I think it's going to be at number one. Based on everything I've read, based on everything I've watched, the New York Giants are really good candidates to trade up in the number one. And I want to make this note. I was going to say it for number three where the Titans were going to pick. But they just got a new GM, Mike Bergonzi. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Now, historically, we have seen new GMs love to trade for draft capital. Yeah. It gives them the best chance year one to establish, hey, you hired me for a reason. I'm going to give you the best chance at making the playoffs, making whatever it is, or just exceeding expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If we look back at 2023, Ryan Poles, the new GM for the Chicago Bears, what did he do, Nate? He traded out of that number one spot to the Carolina Panthers, which caused the Panthers to trade up and draft Bryce Young.
And then they've gotten some draft capital.
They got some good picks out of it. Well, now instead of being the number one pick, the Chicago Bears are still in the top 10, but they're number 10. They're still climbing up. But Ryan Poles was able to make a big splash that way because he said, look, Bryce Young's not going to be our guy. He looked forward. He said, look, Caleb Williams is going to be our guy. He ensured he got that number one pick, and that's who they ran with. They ran with Caleb Williams. This is exactly what Bergonzi's going to do. I'm telling you once, I'm going to say it again. This is not the class to draft a franchise.
No, it's not.
I'm telling you, this is not the class. Bergonzi is looking ahead. He's looking at next year. He says, hey, we're going to trade back. The Giants have a very good chance of being really, really high next year. So we're going to get a quarterback with a top pick.
Okay. But New York's a place where you wouldn't want to go to as a quarterback. But I mean, hmm, you gotta take what you get. You gotta take. This is a great opportunity. So yeah, let's go on. Let's next pick.
At number 2, the Cleveland Browns selected.
Ooh, now this one I want to see what you're gonna do now. Now this is interesting.
Now you know what I'm gonna do here because this is what happened, Nate. Myles Garrett said, "Hey, I want to leave Cleveland. I've done most everything in my career. I've now won Defensive Player of the Year. I've been a first team All Pro multiple times. I'm a first overall draft pick. I've done this, I've done that. The only thing I haven't done is win a championship."
Yeah.
So he said, "Hey, I want to get out of Cleveland," which was the perfect idea to bump up a little bit of money in his next contract, because that's exactly what happened. He signed a 4-year, $160 million deal, making him the then highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And then Jamar Chase signed that $1 million extra deal, made him the highest non-paid. But now I can't see the Browns taking a pick like Abdul Carter, because then it would just water down that of Myles Garrett. So I got to thinking, do they trade back? Is there a scenario where somebody wants to trade back and take number 2? I don't think you do. 2023, 2024, we have seen a back-to-back same position picked for the first and second overall draft picks. And this time, it's going to happen again. Deshaun Cosby, Diddy Watson, Deshaun Watson, whatever you want to call him, there is no return in sight for his Achilles tear that he suffered in the 2024 season. So with the second overall pick, Nate, the Cleveland Browns stay. And they take Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado.
You know what? Not a bad pick, but I'm still leaning towards, again, I'm a defensive guy. I'm thinking they do draft Abdul Carter
You
from
think so?
I think you put him on the opposite side of Myles Garrett. You have a formidable defensive line.
There's a good chance that happens, but
Yeah, but I
in
like
my eyes, I just think Shedeur gets drafted here.
I like this pick, but I like this pick. I really do.
Jack thinks they should.
Yeah.
So let's go to number 3. So originally we had the Raiders trade up to 3. They draft Shedeur. That's not going to happen because now the Giants trade up to 1, so the Titans are here. You've heard that I just told you. First-year GMs love to make a splash. They love to acquire draft capital and give their teams the best chance at succeeding in the next season.
Right.
Well, Bergonzi is on record saying, hey, we're not going to pass on generational talent. And I've said this every mock draft we've had because I've went against it every mock draft we've had. But I'm not so sure that's going to happen this time, because as bad as your quarterback play is, you have to think, if I'm Bergonzi and I have somebody like Cam Ward or Shedeur or Travis Hunter, and I have a guy like Abdul Carter, which guy is going to make the bigger splash on my team? Which guy is going to make the most impact on my team? And so for number 3, I had 2 very good decisions. I could go with Travis Hunter. I could go with Abdul Carter. So I really have to think of what is going to happen in Tennessee. You have someone like Jeffrey Simmons, who you signed to a big deal. You have somebody like T'Vondre Sweat, who you just drafted, who's really, really good on your team now. Do you need another defensive lineman to oversaturate it? Or do you get somebody like Travis Hunter to give your quarterback play a better chance to improve?
Well, is it quarterback? I mean, or is he going to play DB? That's another thing too, because you got to find like what his position is going to be identified as.
And that's the exact question I asked myself at this pick. So the best chance to not have to figure out the answer to that question, at number 3, the Tennessee Titans select Abdul Carter out of Penn State.
I like that.
Generational talent.
I do.
We're not going to pass on it.
But this is another thing too. That's why I say I think Cleveland, either Shador or Abdul Carter. Those are both great picks, but I'm thinking more so less. Even though you just signed Myles Garrett to that amazing huge deal, you got Myles Garrett on one side. If you can get somebody else that can go ahead and really, again, if you can collapse the pocket and control the line of scrimmage, that can help you big time. And then on top of that, looking in that AFC North, where you got to go against the likes of a Joe Burrow, to go against the likes of a Lamar Jackson, you know, well, we don't know who's going to be in Pittsburgh, but again, but I like this pick, I really do. In Tennessee, they're going to get, if they take him, they're going to get a great pass rush out of him on one side and Simmons on the other side. And the way to get this team built, this team back up, is from the defensive, from the defensive standpoint and from the trenches. So I like this pick. Good job, Connor. Good
Now,
job.
the question I ask myself is, if he went, and you could say the same for Tennessee, but if he went to the Browns, as big of a contract they gave Myles Garrett, how big of a contract is Abdul Carter going to get when his time comes? Because look, now that the salary cap increases significantly every year, first round picks, especially in the top 3, are not cheap. They are not cheap. So to save yourself from having to spend a whole bunch of money on an edge or 2 edges, go a different route and spend money on a quarterback, a position you need.
Right.
So we go to number 4. And our original pick was Travis Hunter, the Patriots. They draft best available because they have so many holes on their team, and Travis Hunter could really fill 2 of those holes. Pause. But I like this pick here, and I'm not sure that there's any need to change it. So with the 4th overall pick, I'm going to stick with Travis Hunter.
Okay.
And the Patriots take him at 4.
Okay.
So go to 5. Originally, Jacksonville Jaguars are at 5. And so we look at the free agency period to really evaluate if a team is going to get that position during that period, or they're really, really looking at a prospect they want on the draft. Because you're not going to go sign a position for a max contract, a big contract, if you're going to go ahead and draft them in the first round. It's just not going to happen, which is why I don't see Abdul Carter going to the Browns, but it could happen. But at number 5, you did not address your DB situation at all, Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. It is still as bad as it was a day ago. It's still as bad as it was a week ago. It's as bad as it was a month ago. And there's just not a better DB prospect in my eyes than Will Johnson. So at number 5, to really, really, they signed Jordan Lewis. They signed Jonathan Jones, I think. Maybe that was a different team. But they're signing old people. I think that was the Jaguars. I could be mistaken. Do not listen to me. Jonathan Jones is probably on a different team. Yeah, Jordan Lewis. That's the guy. If there's really, really a guy that you're looking forward to getting, I don't think there's a better prospect than this. So at number 5, I got to keep Will Johnson here because you're still in dire need. I don't think Jordan Lewis is the answer to your DB issues. Now, you could go someone like Mason Graham here, but I feel like your biggest need is defensive back for sure.
Yeah, they haven't been good. They haven't had like a really solid secondary since Jalen Ramsey, to be honest with you.
Jack Gaffney doesn't think they go corner, and there's a very good possibility they don't. But I like the chances at 5, or they get I think they get a defensive player regardless. They could get a defensive lineman.
They're getting a defensive player. They're getting a defensive player.
So we keep going.
Yes.
Originally, at number 6, we had the Giants trade back. I still think Jackson Dart is going to go pretty high. I saw Mel Kiper today put him at number 9 for the New Orleans Saints to draft him.
They got him
in his latest
top 10?
His latest mock draft. So people are watching. Analysts are seeing what I'm seeing, although I can't see it. Yeah, I just don't know if he's going to go round one. He might go round one. There's a very good chance. I wouldn't put him out as good as he did in the combine. I wouldn't put him out in round one. But he's not going to go number 6. There's no way. Because right now we have the Las Vegas Raiders at number 6. And look what they just did. They just got Geno Smith for a third-round pick from the Seattle Seahawks. You got Brock Bowers, the stud you drafted in the first round last year. Great. And then you have Jacoby Myers coming off a pretty good receiving year. I mean, you just have a pretty good young receiving group that could get better. So do you make your receiving group younger by drafting someone like Tet McMillan right here or draft a lineman maybe? So I got to thinking, if you are going to invest in your skill positions, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, what position does that leave last?
What you thinking?
So at the number 6 spot, I love this pick now because I know they're not going to get a quarterback. So at number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders select Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State.
Oh my God! I had a feeling you was going to say. I had a feeling you was going to go there. So are you going to really draft a running back at the number 6 pick? You really going to draft a running back?
This is the thing. We've seen running backs go this high. Bijan went this high a couple years ago.
Bijan went 8.
It happens. But look, we're talking about Ashton Jeanty here. We're talking about the dude that was pretty much single-handedly his offense. I mean, he really wasn't. They had pretty good quarterback play, but dude was generational this year. I mean, the best running back we've seen, a lot of people are saying, since Barry Sanders. He was that close to breaking the rushing record. So this isn't a Bijan Robinson. We're looking at a different prospect. And there's a very good chance that this prospect is good enough to be a couple notches higher than Bijan at number 6.
I don't know. I mean, I would take something else. I mean, the Raiders actually need help on the offensive line. They can draft the best tackle available or on the defensive line. But I really will more likely go defense because you're in the AFC West. You got to go against Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert every year. And now, what is it, Paxton Lynch? Or no, Paxton
That is a crazy pull.
Bo Nix. Come on now. 3 of those teams in the AFC West, did they not make it to the playoffs last year? Are you playing catch up? The only way you can really gain ground on those 3 teams, you got to go defense. You got to shore up that defense because this division, those names, the coaches, Andy Reid, Harbaugh, Peyton, they put up points.
They do. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there's a couple good options here. You just signed Max Crosby to a crazy deal. I mean, he's staying in Las Vegas. But at the same time, there's just something about Ashton Jeanty in Las Vegas that, to me at least, that he's just going to get drafted there. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with this pick. That's why these are mock drafts, Nate, because we're trying to decipher what these organizations are thinking come draft night, what they're going to go. And sometimes they don't know what's going to happen until they get to their pick because of what happened before their picks. You know, anything can happen. But Ashton Jeanty at 6, I kind of like it. So let's go to 7.
Okay.
New York Jets, originally, we had Will Campbell here. Now, my reasoning with it was once free agency comes, you're going to lose Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, your 2 starting left tackles, which causes your last year's first-round pick, Olu Fashanu, to come up and play some football. Well, at this point, it occurs to me that you did not address your tackle situation once Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith both left. So what do? You just signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal to give him the best chance to reach his potential, which other teams have not given him that chance yet. You have to give him the offensive line. He cannot be running for his life like he was in Chicago. There is no way you're going to get good offensive play out of Justin Fields if that's going to happen, because he's going to perform just like he did at Chicago. Okay? If two of your starting tackles are gone and a rookie from last year just stepped up to become one of them, that leaves another hole. So at number 7, they stick with Will Campbell.
Okay.
It just makes sense. You got to give Justin Fields you got to give him the chance. I mean, you signed him for that much money, you got to give him a chance.
Gotcha. I like it.
So let's go 8.
All right.
Originally, number 8, the Carolina Panthers, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. And it just makes sense to me for this, because I thought about it, and you go defense here. There's no way you don't go edge here. You just signed an interior D lineman. You signed a linebacker. Like, there's people you're signing in Carolina.
Yeah.
But I think you not only get an edge here, but you get one that fits your scheme, your defensive scheme, because you're trying to establish a culture, if not a winning culture, in Carolina that you have not done before. The only way to do that is to have players come in to help out with what you are already building. And the best way to do that is to get somebody that fits your scheme. Well, this guy right here was the guy in mind for me. You run a 3-4 in Carolina.
I really do.
They run a 3-3-5 in Tennessee, which shifts to a 3-4 a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But there's people like Mikael Williams on the board, a guy like Mike Green on the board, Shamar Stewart's on the board. These are guys that can all still go at number 8. But for me, there's a guy that ran a 4.45 at the NFL Combine. And I'm going to tell you his name.
Preach.
That's James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. He's going to stay at number 8. If you see somebody running a 4.45 at you that weighs over 250 pounds, I'm going to be scared. I'm going to be scared to death.
The thing about it with him, I just hope he pans out, because the last person that had freakishly athletic abilities like him at the Combine was Jadeveon Clowney. And Jadeveon Clowney didn't pan out like the way the billing was. So I really do.
I agree. I mean, he was crazy at the Combine, and it really just solidified this pick for me at 8. So we go to 9. Oh, the New Orleans Saints. Originally, I had Tedoroy McMillan here. Now, I was talking to my buddy today, and he really pointed out to me, like, hey, we need defense at 9. And I agree with him, because if I see Mel Kiper have Jackson Dart at number 9, I'm going to throw up and pass out again. If the Saints pick Jackson Dart at number 9, I'm going to pass out, because there is no way you draft a quarterback this high in this draft class. There's no way. I wouldn't touch a quarterback with a 6-foot pole in the first 2 rounds of this draft class. I don't like them. There is not a single quarterback that I think would help New Orleans in this first-round pick. So you don't draft one here. You either draft this guy at number 9, or you draft defense. And that is the only scenario I see happening. And I really hope this happens. Thank you, Jack. If Mickey Loomis gets arrested in the war room in the middle of the draft before this pick happens, so that Jackson Dart does not become a New Orleans Saint, I would be greatly appreciated if the local Green Bay police would go in and ensure that happens. But, Nate, you talk about defense. You just signed Chase Young to a big old deal. And you have an old player like Cameron Jordan, and it just makes sense to draft defense here. I mean, you still have guys like Shamar Stewart, and we have Mason Graham still available. We just have these big defensive linemen that could be drafted at 9. That would be so useful. But here's the thing, Nate. Mickey Loomis decided he wasn't going to rebuild this season. He was going to try to compete. The only way I see us competing is by drafting a guy at number 9 that's physical, a Megatron-like prospect, a dude that came from the University of Arizona, a Wildcat himself, like Nate Nessy. At number 9, Tedoroy McMillan.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Show U of A some show them some respect.
Now, yes, there are a lot of picks that are the same because I trust my gut so much that I'm going to stick with it. And so let's see if number 10 is the same as 7, 8, and 9. Let's go to number 10, Nate. All right, so originally I had Kelvin Banks here as a guard tackle because that interior line for the Chicago Bears it was so awful. They need to do something about it. But let's see what they did in free agency other than a couple teams on this list. They signed Drew Dahlman, a center. Big deal. Drew Dahlman now is a center. And they traded for Joe Thuney, the guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, because he was just getting older and the Chiefs just wanted to do away with some of their older players. But there's still a position on that O-line that scares me, and that's tackle. You have Darnell Wright on the right side of the line, who's promising, who I would keep as a starter. But you have a dude that's injury-prone on the left side. He really hasn't hit his stride, and that's Braxton Jones. And it's just, do I keep the pick at number 10 and keep Kelvin Banks here to ensure that, hey, if Braxton Jones, one, goes down with another injury or does not hit his stride like you think he will, you have a good backup. You have a guy that could probably start over Braxton Jones. And so once I answered myself that question, at number 10, it became very clear to me that the Chicago Bears were going to stay with the original pick, and they're going to use Kelvin Banks as a tackle. Notice I took guard off because Kelvin Banks is going to be a tackle at number 10.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Being smart at that 10 pick, Chicago building that line.
For who, Nate? The guy they put all their eggs in the basket for, Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
They got to. Because if you're gonna start a plan, you got to finish it.
Yeah.
So let's finish it at number 10, Chicago. Let's go to 11. Originally, San Francisco 49ers. They picked Mason Graham, D tackle out of Michigan. And I just feel so good about my gut, Nate. I mean, I can just point out what these teams are thinking. But look, let's talk about San Francisco. Everybody's gone, Nate. Everybody from San Francisco, the players, their mamas, their wives, their children, their next door neighbors, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers, they're gone from San Francisco. It's like tumbleweeds in San Francisco right now because there's no occupants in their towns because all their players are gone. And the only way they did that was because they wanted to re-sign Brock Purdy. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to re-sign Brock Purdy. They get rid of George Kittle. They get rid of Dre Greenlaw. You get rid of Hufanga. You get rid of Deebo Samuel. You're getting rid of all these pieces. But do you notice two people that you got rid of are in the same position group? Javon Hargrave, your release, goes to Minnesota. Malik Collins, who didn't pan out the way you wanted to, your release, and he goes elsewhere. So, man, I just love my gut because it made this need for D tackle that much more highlighted. And so at number 11, there is not a single choice you have to make besides Mason Graham, D tackle out of Michigan.
That's really all you can do. He's really the best available. He's really the best available, especially for what you need, your needs.
So let's keep going. Oh, this pick took me a minute, Nate. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Originally, I had Ashton Jeanty. Well, Jeanty's gone, and we know that once skill position players get picked, there's only a matter of time before the rest of them start going.
Yeah.
Well, the next best running back in this draft class is Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina. Do I think somebody like Amarian Hampton is going to go number 12? There's a good possibility it could happen.
Are you serious?
Because they're the Dallas Cowboys. But
and Dallas is known for doing dumb stuff.
If I'm Jerry Jones and I think I'm the greatest GM in NFL history that the NFL's ever had, there's no way I can pick Amarian Hampton at 12. You got to go look at a different running back. I really like Taj Brooks. He's rated pretty low, but I really liked him in college. He could stay in the state and go to Dallas. Regardless of who you get at running back, you're not picking one at 12. Let me tell you why, Nate. Although you're in need of a running back, it's too much of a reach. Your first-round draft pick last year, Tyler Guyton, that you drafted from Oklahoma to play tackle, was the worst-rated first-round draft pick of the 2024 season.
Wait.
Awful.
Oh yeah, he was the last
He
one.
was the worst-rated first-round draft pick last year. And that's really hard to get that title. So because it didn't work out last year, let's get a tackle from a real SEC school. Somebody who's been playing a minute and actually knows how to play tackle and some block. So at number 12, a guy that showed out at the combine, the Cowboys select Armand Membao, tackle out of Missouri.
Good pick. Good pick.
So let's go to 13. I'm going to make these next ones quick, and you'll probably guess why. Number 13, originally we had the Miami Dolphins picking Jalen Walker out of Georgia. This is the thing with Miami. You're really not good on any level besides probably corner on your defense. A lot of people are injured. You got a lot of older guys. In my mind, you do not know who you're going to have in your first and second levels on defense. You have no idea. Well, if you get a guy like Jalen Walker, that's a guy you can either have in the second level really comfortably or have him in the first level and play on a line a couple times. Not as comfortable, but he can do it. So because of that reason, because you just don't have any idea what you're going to do on those first two levels, just like the Patriots draft Travis Hunter to fill two holes, Pauls, you got to get a guy that could do it too. So let's stick with Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, and see what he can do for the Miami Dolphins.
Okay.
So we got a 14?
Yeah, don't give. No, yeah, I'm glad you didn't get a Dolphins no trash pick.
No. They get a good player. 14, Nate. Tyler Warren. When I told you this pick, I asked you a very simple question. What makes an Indianapolis offense more exciting than it already is? When it has a dang good tight end to pair with it. You have the running back. You might not have the quarterback just yet. You're getting there. You signed Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson. You might have a little bit of a battle this season. We'll see what happens. But you can't really draft quarterback at 14 unless you really want Jackson Dart, and then you have a three-way competition, which I just don't see happening. So at 14, you keep it exciting. You draft Tyler Warren out of Penn State. So we keep going. Falcons originally picked Mikael Williams, edge out of Georgia. And this was my mindset for this. I really like
the Falcons because you don't like the Falcons.
I'm not. Even though they're dirty birds, they're this, that, and the other. 28-3, you know. Couldn't be me. 15. You have to draft edge here. You have to draft line here. And specifically, you have to draft edge. You can draft interior. You just lost Grady Jarrett. But edge is your best bet. You are a team.
Forgot about Grady Jarrett.
You are a team that just went bottom 2, 31st in the league in sacks last year. That's horrendous. Now, we say defense builds championships. The only thing that's building is a nice little slice of cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. You're not building anything on there besides destruction. You have to get a guy on here that can give you the sacks you need because 31st is just not going to cut it if you want to try to compete.
Pause.
At 15, the Atlanta Falcons stick with Mikael Williams. And they get a guy that can help them go from 31 to 30 in 2025.
Yeah.
I hate the Falcons. Number 16, our last pick of our first half of our
Are you going to change that?
Mock Draft 2.0. I might. At number 16, the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. And originally we said, hey, they need cornerback help. Regardless, they need cornerback. And I just love my gut, Nate, because even pre-combine, I could have told you these guys are going to get better than they are. And this guy might have gotten a little better as a prospect. And it looks like he's still available. But let me give you something, Nate. You allowed your opponents to complete 68.6% of their passes in 2024. This was the fourth worst of any team in the entire NFL. You have to fix that. You were one game away from winning your division and making the playoffs. So let's ask the question we always do. What was the thing that prevented me from doing X, Y, and Z? What was the thing that prevented me from making the playoffs? The one game away I had, what was it? And it was DB, specifically corner. 68% of passes. If I finished my career with 68% of passes as a quarterback, I am one of the most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it.
Top half. You're in that top half, yeah.
I'm right there. So you cannot allow that to happen again. At number 16, I'm going to make it short and sweet. It's the same name you saw before, Jahdae Barron out of Texas, because he's going to Arizona, baby, to help that 68%.
I was thinking more deep.
I love this guy. I don't know. I saw him in person. He was fantastic. I love this guy. He's just a gritty, great player. And as good as that Texas secondary was, I'm going to say it. I said it once, I'm going to say it again. This guy was the leader of it. And I think you're going to see why he was the leader once he gets drafted.
I like that. I thought he was going to go D-line with this one. Try to find somebody that can, get some pressure on the quarterback, collapse the pocket, or even go if there was a solid offensive lineman to protect Kyler, and whatnot. I can't remember the numbers in which if Kyler was sacked, how many times he was sacked last year, or any of that. But I do like the pick. And Mr. Barron, he's a feisty competitive guy.
At 17 are the Cincinnati Bengals. And originally, I had Malachi Starks going here. And I just love this pick. Something about this pick just screams Cincinnati Bengals. Malachi Starks to me just screams Cincinnati Bengals. But let's talk about its post-free agency. So let's talk about what each team has done to get here. So what did the Bengals do? They gave their two starting wide receivers a combined $276 million over the next 4 years. You now have less than $5 million in cap in 2026. 2025, excuse me.
2025, 2026.
Yeah, 2025, 2026. When the salary cap has increased 10% in this next coming year. I mean, that's a little Mickey Loomis-ish to me, is what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing. Now, you have the 25th ranked defense in 2024. So, all signs point to you drafting a defensive player in this class. It's got to be in the first round. You have to use your first round pick to draft a defensive player. If you don't, you are entirely screwed next season because you have invested all this money and time into offense. You need to invest a little bit to defense because there's two sides of the ball. Nate and I talked about this last week. So you could go pass rusher here. You could go an edge. Trey Hendrickson has requested a trade. This could be a Myles Garrett situation where he just wants a contract extension to stay in Cincinnati because he does believe that maybe this team can go to another Super Bowl like they did in 21. So, at number 17, do the Cincinnati Bengals select a pass rusher? Do they select a safety? Geno Stone is a free agent acquisition from the Baltimore Ravens. Horrible. You signed him. He was a horrible free agent acquisition. Jordan Battle from Alabama. Bad prospect. Not the prospect you hope for. I said this in my first mock draft. And Von Bell is just a shell of his former self. He's old. You have to get a guy in your third level of your defense that knows how to play ball. You just re-signed B.J. Hill, your D tackle. to an extension. You got somebody on the D-line for now. Maybe you re-sign Trey Higginson. But until then, I'm going to stick with my gut and say at 17, the Bengals select Malachi Starks. Just love this pick, no.
Yeah, I do too. I think I've been saying this all offseason. If you're the Bengals, you take the best defensive player available. And I think even more clearly now, you don't need to go edge or something. You need a DB. And Malachi Starks, certainly the best DB available at 17. So I love the pick.
So let's go 18. Seattle Seahawks. Originally, I had Armand Membao, tackle out of Missouri. This guy did so good at the combine. I had to put him number 12 of the Cowboys. So he is not available. But let's talk about what they did in free agency. Sam Darnold signs a 3-year, $100 million deal with $55 million guaranteed to the Seattle Seahawks. They're trying to do another Geno Smith experiment where they get an old veteran quarterback, guy that hasn't found much success in previous years, and see if he can turn his career around. Give him a second chance. So let's go ahead and shovel $33 million a year into a guy that played good for one. But the best way to give Sam Darnold a chance, giving him all this money, is to fortify your O-line just like you did with Geno Smith. Do the exact same thing you did with Geno Smith if you want Sam Darnold to work out. So at 18, a couple picks higher than I had in my last mock draft, I think the Seahawks take Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama.
My question is, I agree they need to fortify their O-line, but who the heck is Sam Darnold throwing to next year? That's the kind of the one thing to play devil's advocate. Like, of course, you always need O-linemen, but it's like they might need wide receiver more because if your wide receiver 2 is Jake Bobo,
he's not.
That's kind of concerning.
You still have Jackson Smith and Jigba, first-round draft pick, and you just signed Cooper Kupp. So it's not your biggest need.
No, they signed Cooper
It's
Kupp.
not your biggest need. You have to go O-line here. Wide receiver I agree you have to draft a receiver sometime in this draft class. It's not your biggest need. You don't do it in the first round.
I actually had no idea they signed. Completely casual take on my part. I completely apologize for that.
Let's go.
That's
19.
awful.
Speaking of wide receiver, originally, Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Luther Burton. We were talking about this before the show. And his performance at the combine was lackluster. But do the Buccaneers still need a wide receiver? You re-signed Chris Godwin to a 3-year deal to stay in Tampa Bay. So there's no need for a receiver here at 19. So we can take Luther Burden out the equation, a guy that might not even go in the first round now based on his combine performance. But you look at a different piece that you really need if you're Tampa Bay. A guy that has been a significant piece to your defense for years, Levante David, is 35 years old. There is no chance that you re-sign this dude once his contract is over. This dude might as well retire.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a Calais Campbell. I mean, he is, but dude needs to go. Calais Campbell's still playing, and he's 40 years old. So don't re-sign Levante David. It's not going to be a good investment. So you get somebody that can be his successor. So who do you take at 19? You get Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. And I think this is going to be the perfect successor. The only issue with this pick is right now he's scheduled to get a shoulder surgery, which could hurt his draft stock, or it could just stay the same. We saw someone like Jonathan Brooks last year who still got picked really early in the second round, first or second pick in the second round last year. And he didn't play almost all the season this year because
he barely touched the field.
Barely touched the field. But he was still drafted based on potential, what he could do after he came back from injury based on his college performance. The shoulder injury is not as bad as a torn ACL. So we're going to say his draft stock doesn't change, and he goes 19.
What's the recovery time on that hypothetical surgery? Do we know?
It's not hypothetical. He is having shoulder surgery.
Oh, he is having it?
Yeah. No, he is going to undergo shoulder surgery. I don't know the time. I think the last thing I saw was 4 months maybe. So it's not going to really go into the next football year.
It won't completely derail.
He should
his
be
season.
ready before the season starts, based on what I saw. So I like to pick you. So let's go 20. Originally, I had the Chargers trading up to go at 20 and take a guy that I think suits Harbaugh well. But I don't think the Chargers trade up anymore because there is a guy at 20 that I really like as a prospect. I saw him in person. He still performed at the combine. So the Broncos keep number 20. But you get a great prospect here. You run a 3-4. You get a good rotational player at 3-4. And Denver is no stranger to drafting Texas A&M prospects. So number 20, some of these are going to be the same as 1.0. And this is the same pick here. They take Shamar Stewart out of A&M.
Yeah, I like it. Don't have heavy opinions on that. He's a dog, and I agree the Chargers don't need to trade up to get Colston Loveland, assuming that's who you still have them taking. I have no idea.
We'll see.
We'll
got another pick till we get there.
There's no world where you have to trade up for that. So this feels right.
So let's go 21. Originally, before the DK Metcalf signing, I had the Steelers taking Emeka Egbuka because I thought that was their best need come draft. Well, you signed DK Metcalf to a 4-year, $132 million deal. You got two of the biggest wide receiver menaces on the same team together in George Pickens and DK. So you don't get a wide receiver here. It's not your biggest need. It changes. There is a guy at the combine that showed out defensively. So let's go defense here. Mike Tomlin loves his defense, so let's keep it. Let's do the same reason as Tampa Bay here. Cam Hayward, 35 years old. He's not getting any younger. There's not much more ball left he could play. So when his contract is over, it's not going to be smart to re-sign him. A lot of people aren't going to re-sign Cameron Jordan to 2 more years at 34 years old. But
that triggers me.
Some teams
hearing
are
about
smart
that.
enough to not do that. And I think the Steelers are one of those teams. Once it's all said and done, you need a guy who can be the successor. Just like at 19, we had Jahad Campbell. 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Derek Harmon, DT out of Oregon. A guy I had going last in this first round. In the 1.0, goes 21.
Yeah. I don't know. If I'm the Steelers, I still wouldn't mind going somewhere on offense. Like we said, they don't have a quarterback.
And you could pick Jackson Dart here.
Yeah, you could. And even with, Pickens and DK Metcalf, there's always a chance one of them gets suspended 5 minutes into the first game of the season. So from murdering a ref on the field or something. So, you could never have too many wide receivers. But this is an inoffensive pick, but I maybe consider going somewhere on the offensive side of the ball if I'm the Steelers. I'm not sure who will.
I don't hate that, but I felt whoever goes in at quarterback, they're still got a good chance of making the playoffs. So I just picked their next best need. So let's go 22. Originally, Broncos traded back, got some draft capital. New head coaches love to do that. And you take Shamar Stewart. Well, they already went 20. So right now we have the Chargers at 22 because they stayed at their original spot. And you take a guy that's Harbaugh's guy. Right now you have Will Dissly as your starting tight end in Los Angeles. And I don't think that's going to be for much longer because it didn't work out this past year. It's not going to work out in 2025. So in 2022, you take a guy that can be your guy. And I think you'll agree with this pick. Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. I just love this pick to Chargers. It just makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah, I know that's something I've had on mocks all season. I think that just makes sense. And I think, like you said, they don't need to trade back to get him. I think that's a safe pick at 22. Or trade up, rather.
So let's go 23. Originally, I had Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame, to
Oh,
the Green Bay Packers, which is where the 2025 NFL Draft is taking place. It's going to be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And this just seems like a Green Bay prospect to me. Last year, I had him taking Cooper DeJean in the first round. Didn't happen. We saw what happened with Cooper DeJean. He balled out. But you still have that cornerback need that you had last year because you did not fulfill that in free agency and you did not trade for anybody after the draft was said and done. So I still think you keep cornerback here. You still have no new news for Jair Alexander in Green Bay. Don't know if he's going to get traded, if they're going to extend him, like what's going on there. So you got to be safe rather than sorry. So if Jair does leave, you get a cornerback to replace him. Because right now you don't really have any besides a young Georgia player that I can't remember his name. Georgia secondary. But at 23, you pick cornerback and you go Benjamin Morrison.
oh
stay
my
here.
gosh.
This just seems like Green Bay
Changed
prospect.
so much.
Yep, it's the same.
Oh, no, I love Benjamin Morrison. I love the entire Notre Dame secondary for this past year. I think they're all dogs. I think they're all going to succeed. You know, I love Xavier Watts too.
Oh yeah.
Great, like whoever takes him is gonna have a dog on their hands. I think.
Javon Bullard is who I was thinking of. But
yes,
let's go to 24. Originally, Minnesota Vikings take Tyler Booker. Well, he is nowhere to be found. He's wearing a Seahawks jersey with number 1 written in the front and the back of it with his name right on his shoulders. So let's think about what the Vikings did and what happened today. So today, we talked about J.J. McCarthy earlier. He said the Vikings have not notified him on if he is QB1 for the 2025 season or not. You have no idea who your starting quarterback is
I
in
actually
Minnesota.
saw that. That is one thing I did see.
There you go. So whoever you have there, you still need to make sure they're going to succeed. And this is the story of every single quarterback situation I have in this draft because it's the only way to make sure a draft quarterback succeeds. I mean, we can't pull a Caleb Williams only giving him weapons and no O-line, right? Because we saw what happened there. The guy that was supposed to be the best Bears quarterback year 1 ever, we saw what happened. He didn't have an O-line good enough for him to be the best Bears quarterback ever. So whoever you have in Minnesota at QB in 2025, you have to give them a chance to succeed. I think Kevin O'Connell will do a great job, whoever is there. But a guy you have not seen before in this first round, the Minnesota Vikings take Gray Zabel, O-line out of North Dakota State. This is a guy I saw at the Senior Bowl. And I have O-line on here because this dude can literally play any position on the line. He took snaps on every single position on the line. Center, guard, tackle. Every position, and he was good at any one of them. So, if you are lacking on your O-line, pick a guy that can do it all. Gray Zabel at 24.
I don't hate it. I like Gray Zabel. You know, that's probably the best O-lineman still available at this point in the draft. So if you have to go O-line, it's probably, you know, there's a couple different positions, I think. The Vikings could maybe go, but I think they're a very complete roster. So it's like kind of just buff up what you can.
I think once the first O-lineman gets drafted, like there's obviously a clear number 1 O-line most of the time in every draft. Once the first one gets drafted, there is not a single way to know what O-line is going to go next because teams will like a different O-line. Like I didn't have J.C. Latham going until I think I had him going to the Saints last year. He went all the way up to like 7 to the Titans in last year's draft. So it's like there's no way to predict where these O-linemen are going to go.
And you never know who's going to draft O-line either. Like literally, that's a position every team always needs. You know,
in depth. I mean, people will draft him in the first round just for depth and keep him there. But we go to 25, and it is the Houston Texans. And originally, I had your boy Walter Nolan here. And it just made sense because they didn't have a D tackle. Well, now let's see what the Texans did in free agency for their D line. You extend Daniil Hunter, you extend Sheldon Rankins to play your inside, and you get a veteran defensive tackle, Mario Edwards, to play backup for Sheldon Rankins. So you pretty much did a good need for your defensive line. But now I have to see what the biggest need is for the Houston Texans, because now it's not defensive line. But we just said everybody needs offensive linemen. Yes. So let's see what the Texans did. In my opinion, there has not been a offensive superstar as good as Laramie Tunsil on the Houston Texans in the past 10 seasons. Maybe not even Deshaun Watson was better than Laramie Tunsil was on that offense in Houston. That's how good Laramie Tunsil is, dude.
You're putting Laramie Tunsil above D-Hop?
Deshaun. Oh, D-Hop his last couple years? Yeah, probably. But
if we're talking about the last 10 years, D-Hop, prime D-Hop?
Yeah, maybe D-Hop. But other than that, it's tumbleweeds. Because Laramie Tunsil is the guy. But you trade him away. He's done. He goes to Washington for a can't remember the pick. He goes to a pick. And then you sign Cam Robinson to fill that need. So now you don't really have an offensive lineman need. But we ask the same question every mock draft once we get to the bottom couple teams. What prevented you from making it further into the playoffs? What prevented you from advancing into the next round? And for the Texans, CJ Stroud was eat up by defenses in that playoffs. Eat up.
Fighting for his life.
So it's like you can never have too many O linemen. So why not give him another O lineman? At 25, the Texans select Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State.
Yes. Literally anyone. Any O-lineman.
Anybody.
Please, I do not want CJ Stroud to get CTE 3 years into his NFL career. Like, just please get anybody in front of that man. I 100% agree.
So we go to 26. So I have the Lions trading up to 26 and taking Nick Scorton in my 1.0. Because I asked the same question I do for every playoff team. What prevented you from advancing to that next round? So let's talk about it. Did you do anything in free agency for your D-line, Detroit? No. You couldn't stay healthy last year. Aiden Hutchinson played didn't even play 5 full games. He played in your first 5 games and still led the team in sacks at the end of the season. There were 12 more games to be played. And the dude that played 5, not even 5 full ones, led your team in sacks. That's horrible. You got to get this man some help. And there's not a better option to me right now. Oh, there might be. Maybe the next pick. But this is just the guy that I think screams Detroit. So at 26, let's keep Nick Scorton here, baby.
Sure. Yep,
just anybody on the D-line. Anybody.
Yeah, same thing as Houston with the O-line. It's just like get a body out there. You know, there's a good edge draft in my opinion. There's plenty of guys to go around. Just get one of them, and you're set. Run it back.
And speaking of edges, we get to the next pick, who might be my favorite edge prospect in this entire draft. At 27, the Baltimore Ravens. I originally had them taking Mike Green. Because there's a good reason for it. Now, I'm not a casual like Noah. I do my research, and I know what each of these teams need going into their first round. So, what did the Ravens do last year? Number 1 defense in the entire league. Great. But what was that D-line looking like? Your starting D-lineman combined for 22 of your sacks. Just your starting D-lineman. They combined for 22 sacks in 2024. Kyle Van Noy and Matabute combined for 19 of those 22. Two players on your 4-down D lineman defense combined for 19. In my opinion, you got to spread the wealth. There is no reason two other guys should only have 3 combined sacks starting on your defensive lineman. It just can't happen. It can't happen. So that's why I had Mike Green going here. You didn't do anything in free agency to fulfill that need. So at 27, let's draft Thunder and Herd. Mike Green.
Like,
I know you're a part-time Ravens fan, so how do you feel about this?
I am a part-time Ravens fan. I think, like, Mike Green's not a bad prospect by any means. He's a great prospect. I think you glaze him a little bit. You've been glazing that man for probably 6 months. Like, he probably is the best edge available at this point. In the draft, in your mock draft. I just don't know if that's who I take. I almost rather take a D tackle. If I'm the Ravens.
Well, that's the
Michael
great
Pierce
thing
retired.
about Mike Green is he can play inside too. I'm glad you said that.
Did he play a good amount inside at Marshall?
He played, well, not at Marshall, but once you go to like the Senior Bowl and everything, they test you in those positions.
Yeah.
Mike Green walked on the field, played a couple snaps outside, won every single one of them, played a snap inside, won every single one of them, and walked off the field and didn't come back to the field the whole rest of the week. That is how good Mike Green did that week. So that's why I glaze him just a little bit. But I think this is a good pick here. And I don't think you go wide receiver in the first round if you're the Ravens. I think you have to go D-line.
Jaden Higgins in the first round.
Yeah, not Jaden Higgins. Second round at the
Yeah,
highest.
second
for
or
Jaden
third
Higgins.
round.
Sorry. Sorry. We haven't even had one wide receiver go this yet, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. If I'm specifically trying to fill the D tackle need, where as a part-time Ravens fan, that's a need I'm think is more pertinent to fill. I'd rather have someone that has a large body of work at that position, and not just some play there. So maybe I'm looking at someone like Walter Nolan here at 27.
And I don't hate that. I had him going 25 to the Texans last mock draft. I don't hate Walter Nolan. I think he'll fall somewhere in these playoff teams. In this section. But we go 28, and originally I have the Rams trading back with the Lions. I fulfill that in 2.0 and say the Rams stay at 28. They make the same trade. And this was the issue with the Rams. It's the same explanation I had in last mock draft. You have to protect an aging Matt Stafford to ensure you have the protection for the next guy in line, the next guy who takes over the offense. Because in my mind, Matt Stafford isn't going to continue to play at the elite level he is currently playing at for too much longer. I would say in the next 4 years, probably, Matt Stafford will be ready to hang it up. And that is probably the timeline that would be good to draft an O-lineman. 4 years, that's a rookie deal. You get a 5th year for your first round draft pick. So let's draft one now while Matt Stafford is still playing at a high level. So we see what we have once we get a new guy in. So for this one, I just like this pick. So I kept it. At 28, Cameron Williams goes to the Rams. You don't need a receiver. You trade away Cup. Got rid of Cup, and you got someone like Devontae Adams.
Yeah, they got Devontae Adams. I knew that.
So you get a lineman. Like you said, you can't ever have too many. Mm-hmm. Now, this next pick, though, is probably the best pick in the 2.0 at 29. Originally, is the Washington Commanders. So I had him picking Josh Simmons. You didn't really have a tackle, but you traded for Laramie Tunsil. So I think that position is filled. Laramie Tunsil's still playing at a good level, and you still have a guard playing at starting tackle in Andrew Wiley. But you have good enough depth that if Andrew Wiley ends up not being able to play outside as well as you think he is, move him to interior, bring someone like Brendan Coleman in to play that other tackle spot like you had before. So, for me, tackle's not the biggest need right now. But there's another need on offense that tickled my fancy. As I was looking post-combine for certain players to highlight, certain players I thought would be good fit to the Washington Commanders, it became more and more obvious who they needed at 29. Jaden Daniels, amazing campaign. I shouted it from the mountaintops before the 2024 season, came to fruition, and this is the problem with Washington. Your quarterback was your team's leading rusher in 2024 with 891 rushing yards. That cannot happen. You have a position called a running back that is supposed to fulfill that has the most rushing yards on your team. Gene T goes 6 to the Raiders in this mock. It is only a matter of time before the next running back goes 2. But anything higher than this spot might be a reach for this. Originally, I wanted the Cowboys to draft a running back at 12, but I think it's too high of a reach for the next guy in line, a guy that did really good in the combine, a guy that was third in rushing yards in the country with 1,660. Noah, at 29, the Washington Commanders select Marion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina.
My one question with this, actually, I think this is a great pick. I think it's kind of unconventional. I didn't even think about a running back to Washington. That didn't cross my mind, but it certainly makes sense when Austin Eckler's your starting running back
It's
at
Brian
100 years
Robinson
old.
Jr.
Oh, they have both of them, yeah. But I don't know if Marion Hampton falls that far. I think
he had such a great combine, he might not.
I think this is really this might sound crazy, but I think this is like a class where we could see 3 or 4 running backs go in the first round. And certainly if that is the case, he will be the second one off the board, of course. And
for sure.
he
100%.
could go, there's a couple teams in the top 15 outside of the Raiders that I could see drafting him. Maybe the Bears, maybe the Cowboys, like you said. If he falls to them, this is a fantastic pick. I wonder if he will or not. It'll be interesting to see.
But in this mock, he does. So let's go to 30. 3 more picks. Originally, I love this prospect, Nick Eman-Ward. I loved his game at South Carolina. He was a pivotal player in their 9-win season this past year, and South Carolina was so fun to watch defensively. I mean, Shane Beamer had him right in special teams, had him right defensively, and got Lenore Sellers at offense. So, I mean, that South Carolina team has just been so great. And this was a guy, a leader on that team that made that defense so great. But as of right now at 30, and I mean no disrespect, I said this in the 1.0, you have Damar Hamlin as your starting safety. That is not good to me. That is not good to me. Damar Hamlin.
Did Damar ever play slightly decent this year?
Not good enough to be a starting safety. Because of his story, he is a starting safety, not because of his play. And I hate to say that. That is the truth. But you could use a wide receiver here. You lost Amari Cooper. You lost Stephon Diggs 2 years ago. You could get a wide receiver here. And somebody like Matthew Golden is still on the board. I don't think we've drafted a receiver yet. But do you go offense or do you go defense? The way Josh Allen is playing, he can throw to anybody. So That's why I didn't go receiver here. And at 30, the Bills select Nicky Manwari.
I go wide receiver if I'm the Bills. I think they have a trash wide receiver room. You know, who'd they draft in the? Well, I guess they traded out of the first, didn't
They
they? Who'd
got Keon Coleman.
Keon Coleman, yes, and what the first pick of the second round or something. I think
Mm-hmm.
they traded back. You know, I don't think he turned out to be the prospect they wanted, and you know as you said, the Amari Cooper experiment didn't really work out, and it's like,
well, no, they had good production with Amari Cooper, but it's just like they didn't want to re-sign him because Josh Allen can throw to anybody. I'm telling you, doesn't matter who he has.
Well, I don't know. I would like to get the guy some more weapons, you know, but you know, the Bills are going to be the Bills. They're going to compete no matter what. You know, you could argue just about any position is probably going to, you know, work on their roster. But I think I prioritize wide receiver here if I'm the Bills.
Well, remember that question. What led you to not making it farther in the playoffs? And that third level was awful against the Chiefs. I mean, you just got to fix it up. And that's the question I asked these last 6 picks. You got to get a safety. So at 30, that's the pick. So let's go 31. Originally, Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas, goes to the Chiefs. How can you let this happen again 2 years in a row? Harold Fannin Jr. originally was a good idea. Now, I didn't have him in the 1.0, but this is it could be a certain weapon for Mahomes. I don't know how they'll use him, but it could be something cool for Andy Reid to kind of scheme up in his mind how he wants to use it. But last year, Xavier Worthy breaks the 40-time record in the dash at 4.21, and you let him fall all the way to the Chiefs. Because maybe it was a John Ross thing, like we said earlier, where just because he has the fastest 40 time ever doesn't mean he might not be that good of a receiver, which they are wrong. Xavier Worthy panned out to be pretty good when he was on the field. Injuries sidelined him for several games throughout the season. But now we have a dude who had the fastest 40 time this year in the receiver group at 4.29 in Matthew Golden. We can now have 2 Texas alums play with each other in a pairing that never happened in college. Golden was at Houston 2 years before Texas. He never got to play with Worthy. So now we can make this Texas matchup, the guys that have been the best on the team in the past 2 years. Isaiah Bond's there too, but Matthew Golden kind of outperformed him this year. So let's do the pairing, Noah. At 31, the Chiefs take Matthew Golden, in the league lets it happen again. And he might not fall this far. There's a very good chance
I don't think he does. Yeah. But you know, I feel like the Chiefs, this goes back to what we were talking about before the stream. I think that was before the stream when we were talking about John Ross. It's like, you gotta not just pick guys based off their 40 time. You know, I feel like combines are so misleading for wide receivers because it's like we just glaze dudes off their 40 times. Not saying that Matthew Golden isn't good, but it's like I don't think you pick the guy just because he had a good 40 time. I think you need to. What are you doing about that defense? You just got 40 points scored on you. If we're talking about what stopped you from going far in the playoffs, going farther, you just got 40 points dropped on you in the Super Bowl. You know, I don't know where they go on defense per se. But is that not a bigger concern?
It could be. I think you go best available here. You made the Super Bowl.
Mahomes can throw to anyone.
You just go best available. If it's defense, go defense. If it's offense, go offense. You are in that position as Kansas City to go best available. To me, Matthew Golden is best available at 31 for sure.
I just don't think he's even available at 31.
And you know, I don't hate that.
But that's why you make multiple mocks, you know? This stuff changes. The way we view these prospects evolves over time, of course. So there's no way to even be sure, you know? But I maybe look at the defensive side of the ball.
So now we go to the last pick of the first round in our mock draft 2.0. Thank you for staying and watching me yap about this. I know I went a little over, and I apologize, but at 32, the Eagles take Derek Harmon, and I liked him before the combine, and now I really like him after the combine. So that's why I have him going 21. There's no way he goes 32 now. But let's think about free agency, because we didn't have it during the 1.0. You lost Milton Williams to free agency, a dude that really, really had that entire offensive line double teaming him to allow your edges to go and get sacks. A guy that did that perfectly in the Super Bowl, for example. Josh Sweat, amazing in that Super Bowl. And it was partly because of the pressure Milton Williams was able to provide on the inside. So I gotta stick with my gut here. You go interior D lineman again to get a Milton Williams. It's not going to be Derek Harmon because he's already taken, but you get a guy that I had going earlier in the last mock draft that's now available at 32 that I got to personally interview that said this is the exact thing he was going to do when he gets in the league is have O-lineman double team, take on all the pressure so that the edges can go and sack the quarterback. And at 32, the last pick of our mock draft 2.0, Walter Nolan, your boy, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I really like this pick, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud.
This, to me, Connor, is the real how do you let it happen again? Because how do you let the Eagles just get, like, defensive studs, like college superstars at the freaking end of the draft every year? That's, like, egregious that a guy like that manages to fall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, that defense was already terrorizing people this year. They don't need more. That's scary to me.
And now they'll get more. I think 100% you go interior. I mean, you're at the point where you can go best available. You have the best roster in football, but you lost somebody that was so instrumental to your team. You have to feel that need. Have to.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting that they have the option to just take someone like that at pick number 32. Like, disgusting.